Hi, Diana. Thank you so much for coming on the Thrival Nutrition podcast. How are you doing today?
I am good today. How are you?
I'm very good. Staying busy. Now that spring break is over.
Yes.
Introduce yourself to our listeners, who you are and what you do.
All right. So I am a personal trainer and women's wellness specialist. And so I focus on helping primarily women in the prenatal and postpartum periods to really make sense of their health and wellness. There's a lot of information out there. And when I got my start, I was a young 22-year-old mom with not a lot of information at all. I thought, well, I should probably start moving my body and eating well, I guess. And my doctors didn't have a lot of information for me at that time. So I took to reading books and studying the web and really came to understand health and nutrition in a way that made sense to me and felt like there had to be other women like me out there who wanted straightforward information, evidence-based, but that was individual and took into account their lifestyle and what they were going through, and not subscribe to only one particular way of thinking or approaching health and wellness. So I work with clients individually and in a group setting and teach workshops and seminars focusing on helping women to really dial into their individual anatomy and wellness, and turn that into healthy living lifestyle changes for long term.
That's awesome. I didn't know you were a young mom too. I was too. I was 18 when I had my son.
Yeah. She's now a freshman in high school, a fantastic teenager. I know. She's my buddy.
So that does it. So they do grow up.
Yeah. It's been quite a journey, and there's a big age gap between my first and my third. And so my youngest one is 4 now. So I'm an entirely different parent now than I was when I first started, with all of the information that's available now and all of my own personal experiences. So it does change and shift, and you have to be open-minded as a mom and really listen to what is working for you. And as you know, each pregnancy is different, each childbearing experience is different. So you grow as a parent, as a woman, as, just in general, and your kids are, needing you to be that different person as time goes on too. So yeah.
I know. I threw all the parent books out the window because it is right. I mean, it's different. How I discipline my son is different from my daughter, and it's very different. So I know that after the 6-week approval from a doctor, people are ready to exercise. Moms are either dreading it or they're excited about getting back into exercising. And it is a little bit intimidating, especially because most likely moms have been out of it for a while. Can you give us some tips that will help make that transition easier and give us some exercise ideas?
Sure. So I have a lot of thoughts on this.
I know it's a loaded question.
I could talk all day about it. But the first thing that I'll say is the 6 or the 8 week, depending on if you have had a vaginal birth, a C-section, any complications, whatever that doctor's release happens for you, it does not necessarily mean, okay, now it's time to start hitting the gym 7 days a week, breaking a sweat and going into even what you were doing in pregnancy if you were having an active pregnancy. I would really love to see the paradigm shift and the expectations on mamas postpartum, because we are in a process of healing. Really, it's reasonable to see hormone levels still staying high and fluctuating through 6 months, even up to a year if you're breastfeeding, all of these things. So really being gentle on oneself is a big tip for transition into your postpartum wellness sphere, for sure. That's a big one. Right. Try and not compare yourself to those around you that may have decided to jump back into it and been what you deem to be successful in returning to a post, baby body ideal. That's something we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. As mamas, we don't need any more additional pressure at all. So really, I like to view that postpartum period, specifically the first 4 to 6 months, as really that restructuring, that ritualistic healing that is really important, because not only foundationally for the rest of our lives, if you plan on having future pregnancies, if you need to correct any of the common issues that happen in pregnancy, we're hearing a lot about diastasis recti now. We have a lot of spinal issues and pelvic floor issues. So if you have any of those things that you're dealing with, really focusing on that rebuilding, on that rest and recovery period postpartum is really big. So when you do start to get back into movement, because I do believe that movement is critical for a host of reasons, from maintaining the structure of the body, but also from a mental health standpoint. Gentle movements, things like stretching and gentle yoga, walking is something our bodies are designed to do. And so that's a great way to start. I also like to really focus on the structure of posture, developing good postural habits. When we are starting to hold a newborn baby, and as that baby grows, we can take that time to develop additional strength and structure in our core muscles just by way of holding ourselves in a posturally correct form. So the way that I kind of visualize it is, you kind of think of it like a plastic Easter egg. So this, like one of those little Easter eggs, you've got your pelvis at the bottom and you've got your rib cage at the top. And so you want to keep those stacked like that nice little Easter egg. We don't want them breaking open to the front or the back. We want them stacked nice and straight. And that helps to build those core muscles and keep them nice and strong. Deep breathing is also great. So getting your heart rate up, doing a little bit of cardiovascular exercise can be really beneficial, but also those deep breaths that help to really widen up, open up the rib cage, spread that diaphragm, breathing deep into the belly really helps. Another tip, and I'm loving that I'm seeing it so often here in the world now, of getting mamas together, moving in community. That is something that is so beneficial postpartum. I work with a group called Hello My Tribe here in Austin, and we have postpartum wellness groups. Yeah, and it really is such a beautiful, beautiful thing to see women coming together in that time postpartum to share experience, to move together, to ask questions. And I think that that aspect of the community is really important. So those are some tips for that transitional period. And then another just overall tip is really getting to know your anatomy from a scientific perspective overall as being a woman, but then also your individual anatomy and knowing how to approach it, what works well for you, and moving forward in a slow, measured, conscious way to help to build that foundation of strength and wellness through the postpartum period.
Yeah, the community aspect is a big deal, because I mean, then you're not just nurturing just, your physical body, but, especially in the postpartum stage, you need that support, and that support can like really make or break you, motivate you, everything. I know I've seen Stroller Strides, I think, is another one. I don't know, it seems like there are a lot other groups, and I think that's awesome.
It is. It's really great. There's been so much of a focus on prenatal for so long, prenatal fitness and wellness and what to do during pregnancy. And then you get to the postpartum period and it's like, okay, you're done after that release, see you later, you're fine. We're not, we are in an entirely different body with an entirely different set of circumstances, and having intelligent and authentic and very real experiences from other women that you can draw from. And then also, of course, there's so much more helpful information for women postpartum available now too, from professionals, which is really wonderful.
Yeah, I know. I've been seeing like postnatal, like doulas and all these things that I feel like I kind of wish that I had and then I knew about.
Yeah.
But I think it's still a great great focus that we're in, because it's, especially first time moms, a very difficult transition, because you went from just taking care of yourself to like now taking care of a baby and not losing yourself in that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And your body has been through, it's not like you just, oh, I had the flu and now I'm over it and I'm back, I'm cleared for activity. Right. No, you've been through a 10-month overhaul of your entire personage, right? Yes. Your personality, your insides, your outsides, everything. So it's getting to know yourself again, yes. Alongside the responsibility of having a small person or multiples if you're a mom of multiples. So yeah, it's a big undertaking, and I'm pleased to see a lot more focus on this important period of time.
Yeah, for sure. And as a mom with a young baby, how can a mom find time? Because I know that's a big, I don't want to say excuse, because it's a good excuse. You have a young baby, but yeah. I know that, people struggle with that.
Yes. So in keeping with the idea of having the beginning part of the postpartum phase really focused on the restructuring, on that ritualistic healing, and on being gentle in your recovery, you don't need to be finding time necessarily to go to the gym during that first, 4-month period at least. So the things that are really good to do with your baby, because that initial stage is so important for bonding as well. You're holding the baby a lot. So practicing that good postural connection in your body, making sure you're stacking your joints and building those good habits for posture for the long term. And then also things like dancing and singing with your baby, swaying side to side, doing gentle bouncing and mobility type movements for yourself are really wonderful for helping to keep the joints mobile, but not so much, because we are still dealing with some relaxin and hormones in our body that can put the joints in compromise. Everything is coming back to center. So it just makes sense to do all the things that you naturally feel like you should be doing with your baby, that swaying, that rocking, that lovey stuff. Walking is also wonderful. Making sure that you are, down on the floor too with your child as you're doing some of that tummy time, all of that, making use of the times. I love stacking things together, right? So putting something that you have to do with this rehabilitation type exercise really helps to make it, you don't have to set time aside. Because that's one thing that we come into contact with very often as mamas, is that guilt of taking time for ourselves, right? So what we can do is we can focus on attaching some things that we need to do to help restore ourselves with things that we have to do already. Really helps to maximize time. Once we get into the postpartum phases later, that 6-month plus, again, the community comes into play a lot when you can get into that group movement, group walks with other mamas, or even friends that don't have babies. Just getting out, being social and being mobile is really important. For some mamas, that special alone time is really great. So trusting others to care for your child, whether it's a trusted family member, partner, a gym that has childcare, that's what saved me and actually got me into movement postpartum. I suffered from postpartum depression. I didn't know it at the time, but that's what I had. And a woman who owned a local gym that I used to attend when I was pregnant saw me in a parking lot about 6 months postpartum, and she said, "You should come. We haven't seen you. We have childcare." And it was like, oh my gosh. And it was $1 an hour. And I went and I know. So it was $1 an hour. And I went.
How long was this ago?
Well, that was 2003. So yeah. And in a little town in Arizona. And, but I brought her, and some days I needed to go twice a day. And I go to a morning class and I go to an evening class. And getting into just having a minute away from the baby, but then also really learning to understand my body and what I liked about fitness. Prior to that, I walked during my pregnancy, and that was about it. I had never moved my body intentionally. I went to I got on an elliptical in college one time for 10 minutes, and I decided, oh, no, that is not for me. And I never moved my body intentionally after that. And so getting into these fitness classes, and I took Pilates, and I took yoga, and I took step aerobics became my favorite. And I know, right? And I love it. And I really came to understand the value of movement, of being in my body, of feeling strong, of feeling healthy, of feeling well. And that was what I ultimately turned into my life's work, and wanting to help show other women how there's something like that out there for them too. And that sometimes you find it in really interesting places. Sometimes it's in step aerobics. But yeah, so that was how I really got into the fitness aspect of it. The nutrition side has always been really, really fascinating to me. But so yeah, getting women out of the house and moving is a really helpful piece of the puzzle. If you can't do that, we are in a fortunate time where we have YouTube, we have all different types of video sites that are really low cost, that you can find really, really great sources of information for movement. Yes. And it is cumulative. That's an important thing to remember too. You don't have to set aside an hour or more every day to move in one chunk. Separate it throughout the day, incorporate movement as much as you can, become a moving person, and that changes the game postpartum, in the first part of that postpartum period, when you really don't have those blocks.
Yes.
To dedicate.
Yes. I was actually the kind of the same like you are. I never was an exercise person before pregnancy or even during pregnancy. It was actually when my daughter, it wasn't even with my first, it was my second, like around 4 months, I kind of got the itch because I was getting more into nutrition and just taking care of yourself. And that's when I kind of got the itch of like, all right, let's just see what there is to try. And then I fell in love with weightlifting. I'm not a cardio person. I hate running. It's just not my jam.
Yep.
So it is, you do kind of have to find what you enjoy. Especially in that postnatal stage where you kind of need that thing that you love doing. It shouldn't be something that you dread. And I feel like you never get a good workout if you go and you just don't want to be there.
That's very, very true. And there are things as time goes on, things that we learn about ourselves, things that we go through in our lives. I was in a pretty dramatic car accident in 2007. And so rehabilitation exercises are a part of my life. I have to do them every day. I don't love them. They're boring. But I'm big on ritual, so I make them into a whole big ritual, and I have my soundtrack, and I make it all, fabulous. And that makes it interesting, at least for me. Yes. And I can see my progress, and I can, really get into it a lot more. So you really do end up sometimes, and as we get older, sometimes we can't get away from it, things that we have to do, that we don't love. You may not love cardio, but you've got to get your heart muscle pumping every now and then. So we're going to find a way that's kind of tolerable at least. And we're going to do it because we have to, because it's like eating your vegetables. If you don't like them, you have to, right? So yeah, there are things that we eventually have to come to. In the beginning though of our stages of postpartum, what we're really focusing on is that healing, and is on just incorporating things back in, going with things that you love to do that are really nourishing to you. Absolutely the way to go.
Yes. And I also love using baby as weight. That was my time. Whether I couldn't, my daughter was very clingy. I breastfed all the time. And I actually remember breastfeeding and doing squats with her and just getting just creative and doing it with her. And now she actually loves still hanging out with me while I work out and being my weight and stuff.
Absolutely. And that's a great way to set examples for healthy living for your kids too. If it's just a thing that you do, if you are a moving person, you demonstrate that to your children, it helps them to incorporate these things through their lives as well. And understanding that movement and being a mobile person does not mean that you have to stop and go to a gym and set time aside. It means that we move throughout the day and we move together as a family. And yeah, that's a really good example.
Yes. I know that nutrition and breastfeeding also come into play. So is there something that we can make sure of when we're exercising, that we're not diminishing our milk supply, things like that?
Yes. So when I address nutrition, the very first thing that we focus on is eating for that nutritional density. It's really important, especially in the pregnancy and postpartum period, is to eat for nutrition first. Because babies are nutrition suckers, that's their job, you know, your body, you start being a very sacrificial woman from the very beginning of that union of sperm and egg. So your body, and it doesn't stop.
No. It doesn't.
Your body will basically create a perfect environment. It'll create a perfect environment nutritionally for that baby. It's really hard to not. And it'll also create perfect food in your breast milk to the capacity that it can by pulling from your own stores, not only your fat stores, but also your bones, your muscles. And so what our job is to make sure that we are not only fueling our bodies to feed baby, but also to fuel our bodies to make sure that we're maintaining ourselves. And that ends up being the biggest, most important piece. So eating for nutritional density, that's very simple to find out what the, the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology and our government say about nutrition guidelines, and finding those online is very simple to find what those postpartum and prenatal suggestions are. For me and my coaching for clients is really, my goal is to focus on helping people to diminish the things that are non-essential in the diet, especially during this time. So things like refined sugars and flours, things that are less necessary and less nutritionally dense. And focusing on a variety of foods. We want to focus on a variety of colors of fruits and vegetables, a variety of protein sources, and really making sure that we're getting that nutrition from our food. It's easy to simply, eat a less healthful diet and rely on that prenatal vitamin.
Right.
But that doesn't necessarily bode as well. It doesn't, it's not digested as well. It's not utilized as well. It's not as bioavailable in the body as actual food is. So my suggestion always is to lead with the most nutritionally dense diet that you can get. So if you're doing that and you're consuming at least 1,800 calories a day, and it does vary depending on the size of the woman, and some other varieties of factors around her health that are very individual. If you're noticing a milk supply diminishing, bringing up that caloric intake is your first line of defense. If you're experiencing that not changing and then not improving, that's something to consult your physician about and investigate, see if there's something else to look at. But that is definitely something that can contribute to that little slump or a big slump sometimes in milk supply if a woman has started exercising, especially exercising heavily and nutritionally restricting at the same time, which can be really tempting when you're trying to lose that the postpartum baby weight. So really up to 6 months postpartum, should not even be thinking about weight, if at all possible. It's really a challenge, but this is where community comes in big time, not isolating yourself, getting into a community that you know and trust that helps you to be able to really relax those expectations and just do what you need to do to take care of yourself, your body, and your baby. Then if you're noticing that you're eating well, you're exercising, and the weight is still going up, or it's not coming off, after about 3-4 months of some of these changes, once you get into that 6 months postpartum time frame, then that can be something that you can go and consult your doctor about. There's postpartum thyroiditis that might be a problem.
It's almost always hormones at that point.
Yeah, I mean, the hormones are still fluctuating so much during this period of time. So it's really hard to say that there is any one way that it is going to be. Each pregnancy is different. One woman can have 5 entirely different experiences through pregnancies as far as her postpartum weight loss. So there's no real way to kind of blame one particular thing. And the endocrine system is such people are barely scratching the surface when it comes to the endocrine system. So being gentle with yourself, being mindful, if you notice that there are things that are really feeling off in your body, we need to be trusted to be able to be allowed to be right if we recognize that something is not, lining up, and following through and looking into those things, getting some blood tests if you find that that's something that's going on for you. But otherwise, that the postpartum weight loss aspect of nutrition and breastfeeding, it's all a very delicate and individual balance.
Yeah.
So it really is on the woman to be paying attention and mindful, adjusting that to something that suits her, and because it is, it's a very individual journey.
Yeah. We're running a little short on time, but I just wanted to dive into a little bit about birth control, because I know that most women aren't ready to have another baby right after. And my listeners know my stance on birth control. I'm not a huge fan of it, just because I don't like, fake things going inside your body. if you don't have to. And then your thoughts on the IUD that's really popular. I know it's a non-hormonal, the copper IUD. I might get a lot of questions about that. So I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Sure. So my thoughts are varied on this. The first thing that I'll say is that each woman, and this is with everything, is very different, individual person, and should absolutely make her own personal informed decisions with her doctor and whoever is helping her to make those healthcare decisions, whatever influence she has personally in her world. For me, I think that it's really critical, no matter what type of birth control a woman is on. And there was an article today about a male birth control that they're testing now. Could happen. They stopped rolling it out because the guys were having symptoms. It was really terrible. Which is the thing that we find a lot with birth control that we as women experience. Lots of different types of hormonal symptoms, whether it's a birth control device or pill or injection that provides those additional hormones, or it's that what would be considered that non-hormonal Paragard copper IUD. They affect women in a variety of different ways, from women reporting no issue at all to women reporting life-threatening symptoms. And with the IUD in particular, it's not hard to find the most common issues and side effects are embedding in the uterus, or, perforations and leading to some serious health complications. But also something that I was not aware of until it happened to me was the issue of copper toxicity in the body. That is something that can occur in a woman who may already have high copper levels or may have some other endocrine issues underlying. Again, because the endocrine system is so complex, there's not a ton that's known about it. But the way that I would encourage a woman to approach this is, if you make the decision to get one of these devices or go on one of these birth control methods, to really be taking stock of your body and where it is pre that device or pre that pill. And pay attention to any symptoms that you have that are starting during the time that you are on it, taking it, or have it in you. Because what I noticed with my experience, and mine was a 2-year period of everything from neurological symptoms to hair loss and bleeding gums, intestinal difficulties, enlarged spleen, all different kinds of things that no one really knew where this was coming from. And it was just on a fluke connection that I happened to start to investigate the copper aspect, and through a series of blood tests found out that this is what was happening with me. It doesn't happen with everyone, but it does happen to more women than you would think. And some of the symptoms, some of the major symptoms, things like depression, anxiety, heart palpitations, things that can be blamed on normal hormonal changes, things that can be given a pill to take care of, are things that are not normal. And I think we are told as women, hey, these are just a normal side effect. They're normal for getting older, normal. Right. They're not. And so
I mean, that's like cramps and periods.
Right.
normal. I'm like, no, actually your period, you're not supposed to feel that. You're not supposed to be in pain, like not even being able to go to school or go to work.
Right.
That's not normal. But our society obviously is like, oh, I have cramps, just take Midol, it's normal. I'm like, no.
Yeah, absolutely. And we deserve better information about our health. And we also deserve to be able to make really informed decisions. And that was one of the things that really, to say the least, bummed me out about the experience with the copper IUD, was that I felt like I was getting the non-hormonal option, the healthier option for me, with the information that I had, right? And it turned out that it was really dangerous for me with my personal body chemistry. It bothered me that I didn't know that I wasn't aware of the fact that could happen. The doctor never told me, the drug company never told me. Those kinds of things seemed very unfair. So I think that it does have to be on us as women to really be our own health advocates and help each other, spread the word, share information, talk to each other, ask questions, and really make sure that we are helping to empower ourselves and each other with information to make the best, most informed decision. And again, with birth control, it's a really challenging subject because people do want to be in control of their reproductive health, and the options that we have cause side effects. And so until these companies are continuing to work and do more and do better, we have to keep pushing that envelope and saying, let's do better. There are also natural methods, ways that we can regulate our hormonal cycles, and ways that we can be more in control of our reproductive systems without the need of interventions. We could save that for another time. I know.
That is like a whole other topic.
There's a whole lot out there, and it's, it is on us to keep doing this research and keep continually being invested in our own wellness and healthcare. That's a really important part of it.
Definitely. Thank you so much for all your information. Where can we find you though?
Well, let's see, Whole Foods, the park. Now
we're at a grocery store, probably, most likely.
School, all kinds of places. But I am primarily, you can find me online, FemPower Fitness. It's FEMME, powerfitness.com. And same on Facebook. And I'm here in Austin hosting my individual sessions, group fitness, and seminars and workshops all the time, every week.
Awesome. Do you ever do anything online for people that maybe not?
Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely. Through my website, you can connect. And I have remote clients all over the country. Absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Yes, my pleasure. Thank you so much. Thanks for the work you're doing.